Well, hello and welcome back to the Shallow Proclamation with, well, my name is Thomas and I'm joined by...
Paul.
Hey. Well, so Paul, we're live again.
I know,
already.
I was going to say, did the music on the countdown slow down there partway through?
I thought it did. It was like a vinyl, wasn't it?
I was like 13 seconds left and it slowed right down. I was like, is this just me? Is my internet lagging? Like...
Oh, yeah, no, something happened there, but hopefully everyone can see us and hear us all right. So we normally only do live streams kind of at the end of when we finished a series. So we've done 2 so far when we finished Classic Series 1 and Classic Series 2. But we thought we'd do a special one today because it feels like in the past week, Doctor Who has just gone explosive everywhere, hasn't it? Like,
yeah,
everyone is to it. So many things have happened. There's the Power of the Doctor. We've got a debrief on that. Now we've had time to sleep on it and we've both seen it again. And so many updates and things have been dropping into our Twitter feeds over the past week that we thought we've just got to do something else. And it's great to have you guys along. You can share your thoughts, put your comments and questions in the chat, and we'll try and get to as many of those as possible. But
now we've got nearly 500 subscribers, as Paul Hunter very kindly points out. We're obviously kind of a big deal. So, in the world of YouTube, I mean, 500.
Well, so it was weird, wasn't it? Like, we can't quite get over the fact that 23,000 people have seen our reaction to the regeneration.
Bananas.
We just posted that as a clip, and it weirdly kind of blew up slightly. And it's just a weird thought, isn't it? We're just 2 guys in our houses. Well, this isn't my house actually, but
I was going to say, like, it just
goes like my bay window.
Yeah, very nice. Debenhams. But it just goes to show, doesn't it, like how exciting kind of last week's episode was, particularly the regeneration bit. You know, that it still has Doctor Who, for all its ups and downs, still has the ability to excite people and draw people in. So
Yeah, absolutely. And so we thought we'd start off with just looking at a few slides, kind of recapping the Chris Chibnall era, the most recent era of Doctor Who, how things have kind of gone throughout that, and then looking ahead. Obviously, ratings aren't everything. I mean, I would be the first to say some of my favourite films are films that, for example, didn't do very well in the box office and aren't maybe liked by many people. There's a certain charm in liking things that only a small number of people like. So ratings aren't necessarily a mark of quality, but it is just interesting to note that this is series 11. So this was Jodie Whittaker's first series, first episode, 8.2 overnight. Viewers, 8.2 million, by the way, not 8.2.
It got really bad.
Getting down to 5 towards the end. Next series, 4, getting down to 3. So it is a pretty steady decline. This was Flux. 4, going down to 2.2 million overnight viewers for Legend of the Sea Devils. So
now, you said something earlier when we were talking about this, because things have changed over time.
Sure.
You know, like when Christopher Eccleston emerged on the scene and David Tennant, there wasn't really even Facebook and YouTube for the first year and stuff, and then there's no Netflix and streaming, so people watch things differently. And there are consolidated figures there. We were trying to work out what these figures meant. Consolidated, I think, is including iPlayer and bits and bobs, and I think the we weren't sure about
plus
full screen, were we?
Yeah, it says here the +4 screen counts those who watched live and all repeats, including iPlayer, within X days following broadcast. Within X, so within a certain number of days. So it's kind of a similar thing. But
I think though I think to be fair to this though as well, I certainly felt that during the Moffat era things were tailing off, probably from midway, well maybe through series after the 50th anniversary special. It felt like it lost some of its it stopped being in the public eye so much, and put it this way, by the end of the Moffat era and then definitely in the Whittaker era, I would have felt a bit embarrassed to say that I watched Doctor Who.
Right.
Whereas when David Tennant was the Doctor, and even when Matt Smith was the Doctor, and it was at its height then, and so regardless of what you've thought of any of these last few eras, the show definitely began to decline in the public eye. As well, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and it is too simplistic to say that decline began when Chris Chibnall joined it. Yeah,
I don't think that's the case, but I think it's also the case. I think, I'm not sure what it is, but a lot of the AIs there, the audience appreciation index there, are considerably. I won't say considerably because I don't know. I believe they are lower than the majority of sort of the earlier eras of the new Who,
Right.
And I think there was one that I can't remember which one it was in Whittaker's era that was probably the lowest. It was the lowest it had ever been.
Yeah.
So again, you can't look at the viewing figures as the be all and end all, because there are lots of great things. I mean, look at something like Firefly. If you've ever seen Firefly, was a great series that I just don't think got viewing figures, and then kind of got cancelled, and then became a bit of a cult classic and stuff like that. And it is a phenomenal series, so you can't base it on that. But I think there has been a decline regardless there.
Yeah, I think what they show us is that Doctor Who of recent times has lost a universal appeal.
Is that the cloister bell going off, Thomas? Is that
I think that's a car alarm, isn't it? Right. Gosh. Yeah, it's chaos outside. Dalek invasion. But if you think, during the Tennant era, lots of people who maybe hadn't watched any classic Who, maybe even hadn't seen Christopher Eccleston, they just jumped on board because it was good television. And they watched Doctor Who because it was good television. I think what's happened over the past few years is that those people have obviously been the first to fall away because they're not as invested in the history of the show. They'll just watch it if they're enjoying it and if they think it's good. So those people have dropped away a bit. And you're left with the people like us who will watch Doctor Who, whatever. And a few people, there have been people that have championed the Chibnall era and have enjoyed it. But yeah, getting down to 2.2 million overnight viewers for Legend of the Sea Devils, that is low.
Just saying about the Chibnall era, I mean, I thought what was really interesting is that where I came into the Chibnall era wanting it to be good, and then was very quickly quite disappointed, and I wasn't gonna, I'm not, it wasn't the case that I was just kind of ragging on the show, but it's a show I love, and so I was just kind of gutted that I felt it was just a bit pants now. But at that point, I felt actually those people like myself who were not enjoying it were very much in the minority. At least it felt like online. If you said, I don't think this is very good, everyone immediately jumped on you and just said, oh, it must be because you're sexist. And it's kind of like, well, I actually think it's just because it's not very good. I don't think the writing's great. But what I thought was really interesting was that seemed to persist for quite a long time. But almost immediately, when Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker announced, I think almost simultaneously, that they were leaving the show, it felt like overnight, Twitter is not representative of people's real views, but it felt like that online community on Twitter suddenly turned around and just went, oh, thank goodness. It really was, it did seem like a huge turnaround very quickly, that people were saying completely different things. They were going, it's not been good. And rather than kind of reading comments under sort of Facebook posts or Twitter threads where most people were very positive, and anyone who said something negative was being vilified, it felt like everything almost was so negative about the era. And I was really, I didn't know quite what to make of that. Because I'd almost felt like I couldn't voice my opinion on the show anymore because you just get shouted down. People weren't interested in having a good discussion, a good faith discussion about is there good things in this or bad things? Is it working or not? It was just, if you disagree with me, if you don't think it's good, then you're obviously X, Y, Z. And I felt that was a really bad. That's a bad place for the show to be in anyway.
It's not very helpful, isn't it, when people assume your reasons for disliking something? Because I'll say this again: when Peter Capaldi regenerated into Jodie Whittaker, I was iffy about the Doctor becoming a woman simply because, as you've said, Time Lords had been established as being male or female characters this is a male Time Lord, this is a female Time Lord. That had been an established part of the show before. But when the regeneration happened and she was in the TARDIS and the ring fell off her finger, I thought, actually, this is really interesting and this could go in really interesting directions. So my objections to this era have not been that the Doctor is a woman. It has been just the stories. It's simply that. But people assume, don't they, that it's, oh, well, you're probably prejudiced against it. But moving on to this, so we then get to the Power of the Doctor, which is really interesting to me because when Jodie Whittaker was interviewed in the run-up to that, she seemed to have changed her tune slightly. You can't imagine her saying this back in 2018. She said that the special will celebrate the old, the present, and the new of Doctor Who. I would say that Whovians are in for an absolute treat. It's a wonderful homage to the legacy that Doctor Who has had. It encapsulates all the things that fans love about Doctor Who, whether it be old monsters, returning characters, new elements, everything that unites Whovians is in this episode. So I found that really interesting. When I saw that, I read this article before the episode came out, and I was like, hang on, this is... Yeah, she seems to be, have a much higher regard for the history of the show now. Maybe Chibnall does as well. Maybe they've been on a bit of a journey, and at first they were saying, we're going to do our new thing. We're the new kids on the block. We're going to take the show in a completely new direction, start from scratch, like it or not. Now they're actually saying, no, we're going to honour and pay homage to the legacy. So the question remained whether they'd actually do that in The Power of the Doctor. And I think whatever you make of the episode, it kind of was one for the fans, wasn't it? It brought back legacy characters, and it didn't ridicule them. It didn't make them look stupid or backward. It brought back, David Bradley playing William Hartnell, and they didn't make him look like a sexist kind of backward man. He had a gravitas and a wisdom to him. It was... So, yeah, I don't know what you made of that, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think, undeniably, it was a great... The Power of the Doctor was a great sort of celebration of the history of the show. And I mean, as I did a rewatch, kind of began it last night, finished it today. And I mean, even sitting through the episode with you that last week, all the time I was going, there was a little line there. That's a reference to a story from the classic era. And that's a reference to a story there, like when the Master says, I'm thinking of calling this my Cyber Dalek Master Plan, or the Master Dalek Cyber Plan, and it's a reference to this story we haven't quite got to, season 3, the Dalek Master Plan, and you go, oh, they're just dropping these things in, and there were lots of little comments like that. So I enjoyed that. Yes, it's interesting, and I don't know, Thomas. I've been interested to know if other people have seen this. If anyone has seen the clip of Chris Chibnall as a teenage boy on some TV show in a studio with two people who wrote Doctor Who, where he just lays into them about about the quality of their writing. It's really painful to watch, even before he became the producer, the overall kind of guy, because you just kind of it's that kind of, I'm a teenager and everything I believe is right, and you should be doing it the way I think, and it's painful to watch. But it's even more painful to watch given what this era has been like, really, and maybe having been on the receiving end of that a bit more now, he's maybe a bit more careful with things. I don't know. But we should definitely watch that clip. It's very fun. But
it's a bit like the video of Liz Truss talking about royalty, and then obviously she spoke at the Queen's funeral.
It's a little bit like that.
No, that's really interesting. Well, welcome if you've just joined us. We've had some great comments here. Wilton saying, I don't think Jodie looked comfortable in the role as well. Not saying she's a bad actress, far from that, but her Doctor not interesting to me or to many people. Again, I thought in Attack the Block, the film, she was good. I think she's a good actress.
She's good in that Black Mirror episode as well.
Right, yes. Yeah, I've forgotten about that. But yeah, did she ever become the Doctor to you, Paul?
No, and I think I said that at the end of the Power of the Doctor review, that I don't feel she ever had that moment, like Matt Smith had his moment in episode 1, I felt, with, but I'm the
fish
Doctor
fingers and custard.
Well, no, but say I'm the
Even
Doctor
before
basically run, So I felt I felt every Doctor that. She didn't, for me, no, and I kind of... I think what she always lacked for me was I think, if you look at someone like Tennant's Doctor, Tennant does have the sort of goofy, playful side. So does Matt Smith's Doctor, actually. Which, grows on people. Yeah, Broadchurch as well. She's very good in that. But I think what was important, so that your Doctor isn't just a complete clown, was you had those moments where there were great moments of darkness in those Doctors as well, and seriousness, where you could believe that this was someone who'd lived for 900 years or 2,000 years. Like the end of the Family of Blood with the anger of the Time Lord, and he's ancient and forever, and he burns at the sense that, all this fire and ice and rage. And Matt Smith kind of even though Rings of Akatan perhaps isn't an episode people love, the speech in that where he says, I've walked in a universe devised by the mind of a madman, and, and I know things, secret things. You get this sense of here's this character who's more than just this guy, this goofy guy. And I don't feel we ever really got that with Whittaker, because I don't think he was ever given anything to do with it.
Was she ever given a kind of speech or a monologue?
The one thing that people kind of said, that was her moment, was, or the one thing I can think of was in Haunting of Villa Diodati, when she says to Yaz something like, sometimes the thing is stratosphere. What does she say about? It'd be helpful if I could remember the line, wouldn't it? Where she says about the hierarchy in their team, and she says sometimes it's stratospheric or something, and I'm at the top, yada yada. But even that was very weak. It didn't feel like a big thing to me. The
fury of the time.
Fury of the time.
Get it right, Paul.
Sorry, it's not a real fan. No, I think it didn't quite work for me. And again, a lot of people have said Whittaker's a great actor or actress. I don't know what you're supposed to say these days anymore. Probably get. I'm being cancelled as we speak.
We're putting our foot in it, aren't we?
She's a great actor. But a lot of people said she's a great actor, but she hasn't been given the material, and it was Chibnall's fault for the bad writing, and him and other writers. And then I think what some people said, but the interesting thing is Chibnall. If you look at something like Broadchurch, he's not a bad writer. And some people said at least, I heard people say, Chibnall is not a bad writer, but he's a bad Doctor Who writer. And then I wanted to kind of add to that and say, I kind of feel the same with Jodie Whittaker. Jodie Whittaker is not a bad actress, but I don't think she was the right actress for Doctor Who. Yeah. And I think it was just the kind of perfect storm of two people who weren't quite right for the role, in my opinion. Other people loved it, so, that's fine. If you loved it, great. But that was my thing. So that's why I never felt she grabbed me so much.
Yeah, so it didn't work for us, but I don't want to hate on the Chibnall era, but especially now. I think it went out on a bang, and I feel very positive about Doctor Who at the moment, which is what we'll come on to. I'm not in the mood to speak negatively of the Chibnall era for much longer.
Lots of ink has already been spilled about the Chibnall era. But that was the thing. In the middle of the episode, I said to you, Thomas, I don't understand. I'm enjoying the episode.
Yeah.
I mean, which in a sense is a bit of an indictment of how I feel about Doctor Who in recent years. It's like I'm going in thinking like I'm probably not going to enjoy this. I want to, but I'm probably not going to. Keep your expectations low. But I did enjoy it, and even though on rewatch, and even on the first watch, of course there are things there are some messy things and things where you go, huh?
Yeah.
But I think as a kind of just a thing, it was really enjoyable, and better to go out on a high than sort of just fade out like.
Yeah, we're going to take it as a win. What was my next slide? Yeah, so kind of moving on to the. Some of the updates we've been getting since. Welcome if you've just joined us. Feel free to share thoughts and comments in the chat, and we'll try and get to those. But this guy, Jonathan Carley on Twitter, is he a voice actor?
I don't know. I saw this tweet, but I don't know. Not because I follow him. I think I don't know who he is actually.
I have a feeling he's been involved in some voice work for Doctor Who. But he wrote this really wonderful kind of tweet, actually. Let me get this straight. Doctor Who, that silly little phone box show, is currently led by David Tennant, one of the biggest names in acting, executive produced by Russell T Davies, one of the most creatively influential and respected figures in television. Interesting, of course, both of those names, in a way, were kind of made by Doctor Who, weren't they, first time around? With an extended production team that built a studio off the back of this show and their expertise nearly 20 years ago. Said studio has partnered with the BBC and Sony, two of the biggest media powers in the world, along with all their expertise and resources open to them. They then strike a deal for international distribution and marketing with Disney Plus, the fastest growing international streamer, to consolidate global accessibility alongside two of the biggest sci-fi fantasy brands in the world. I think that's Star Wars and Marvel he's referring to there, but retaining creative control and integrity. However, the deal connects and opens the doors to collaborate on other side projects and utilise some of the most groundbreaking technological resources ever used in television. Coming up, they have one of the biggest breakout stars of any streaming show, Ncuti Gatwa, in the wings to lead the show from 2023. Then to top it off, they brought back an iconic logo. I love how that's the fun, recognised globally by generations to commemorate the upcoming Diamond anniversary. Those are some power moves for the silly little phone box show. And that is when you put it like that, that's astonishing, isn't
I
it?
think that's what the kids these days call a flex, right there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit of a flex there, Russell, you know. People helpfully saying, Jonathan, I forgot his name now, that guy voices the War Doctor in the audios. A young John Hurt, by the look of it.
Interesting.
Just after Regeneration. So, yeah, and doesn't it feel exciting to be like... Because part of me looks at that and I go, well, that's obviously what Doctor Who should be. Doctor Who should be... It should be on the world stage like this. It should be this big show that big people are paying attention to and thing. Flex, definitely not flex.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Flex capacitor.
Yeah, so I mean, like you say, it's been an exciting week for Doctor Who.
So exciting.
Power of the Doctor was a great way to kick it off, and then it just felt like since then, it's like Russell went sort of, all right, game on, let's do this now. Like,
welcome to big school. Yeah. Man, it's just been insane. And someone that responded to that tweet thread that all this happening after a low point in the show's history, you know, some of the lowest viewing figures ever. People weren't talking about Doctor Who. It felt like an overnight thing, didn't it? That suddenly you get tons of people, mainly because of the Tennant appearance, but just responding, oh, I'm going to start watching it again. I'll take David Tennant's back. And then all these updates, Disney Plus and stuff. And you're like, wow, that's quite a turnaround, isn't it? To go where we were before The Power of the Doctor aired to where we are now. It feels like Doctor Who's in a good place again.
And particularly because it seems like it... I think there was a point before Russell T Davies came on board where one of the other kind of guys on the team with Chibnall had kind of done an interview and said something along the lines of that they weren't sure the show was even going to continue before Russell T Davies came back because I don't know if they could find someone to take it over. So that is... like you say, quite a turnaround, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was bracing myself for another wilderness years, in a sense. Well,
you've got to remember that we're sort of, and I forget how far we are into the modern era of Who, because it was 2004, 2005. So we're sort of 17 years in now. Yeah. So in classic Who terms, we're in sort of 1980 kind of end of the Tom Baker era, kind of getting in that direction. But it still feels very new to me, modern Who. But it's not new.
That's
and
a
so
really weird
if someone
thing.
said, you know what, you've done 17 years, you can have a rest. We'll rest it again. To me, that would feel like, oh no, so soon. But it's quite a long time.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'll just bring these slides up again. So, new logo. What do you make of it? And what do people in the comments make of it? Feel free to put your thoughts in.
I mean, I love it. I mean, I saw it crop up in a little video on Twitter, and I went, initially I thought it was like a fan thing, and I saw it and I was just like, what? And then I was like, oh, this is the logo. And I think it may only be the logo for the next year, until the anniversary perhaps. But it's obviously a bit of a rejig, redesign of sort of the late kind of late Pertwee, Tom Baker kind of era stuff there. I think it's amazing. It's evocative of like many memories of Doctor Who for me.
Yeah,
and I think most fans have reacted like that and have kind of it does something inside you as a Doctor Who fan. You go, oh, like
yeah, the evil Dalek. Love your photo, by the way. Absolutely beautiful. And Chemdog said, I really like the new logo. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Paul Hunter about much of the Chibnall era backstory wasn't resolved. Yeah, we'll come on to that actually, whether Russell T Davies will run with some of the the changes to the show that Chibnall introduced. But I mean, just look at that photo with BBC, Doctor Who, Disney Plus at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see that coming at all. And I thought when I saw the Disney Plus thing underneath it, I thought someone had put that on as a joke. Yeah. I thought someone was saying like it as a kind of joke to kind of say like Doctor Who is just this silly little franchise that should be on Disney now or something. I didn't realise that it was actually because it was going to be on Disney Plus. But of course, you know, to think of Disney as this kind of childish thing is probably quite a shallow view of what Disney is, because if we've got Disney Plus and you know what Disney has is actually what I mean obviously Marvel is under Disney now, Star Wars is under Disney now. It's not just kind of Cinderella and the Little Mermaid, as I think some people have that view of Disney, you know, like it's a bit trite and it's old, or it's just a kind of Pixar cash cow.
Disney is now a company like Amazon or Meta, you know, that they own GoPro and stuff, tons of stuff that we don't know that Disney owns. But even including on their Disney Plus, tons of shows and adult shows and kids shows. So, yeah, so it is kind of the hub, isn't it, for entertainment for the modern audience in a lot of cases. So.
And I think it sounds like they are going to... It sounds like we still... I say we. I was going to say, we still have creative control. I don't think that being involved with Disney, from what I've read, sounds like Disney are going to have control over the show particularly. It's still going to be Russell T Davies doing what he wants to do, but it may be able to call on resources from Disney and Sony and all kinds of things that may be quite useful.
Which is good, because a Disney-fied version of Doctor Who could be could go either way, couldn't it? But that's good to know. People saying in the chat, wouldn't it be amazing if they animated missing episodes? Well, they've certainly got the resources for it, haven't they? So
yeah, absolutely.
Who knows?
Yeah. No,
and I love it. Yeah, it was Rich Tipple who retweeted that, as opposed to Poor Tipple. Yeah, we've got Rich Tipple, Fortified Tipple. I'm sorry. But yeah. Yeah, just one thing on the will Russell T Davies run with some of the changes to the show. So Chibnall's ruled out his possibility of returning to the show. He's got supervising teenagers revision is taking up my time now. So, yeah, looking forward to... Yeah, I'll miss the work, but I don't miss the workload. That feels fair enough. I imagine it's a huge amount of work to write Doctor Who. And then he said elsewhere he's admitted he expects Davies to ignore his own changes to Doctor Who when he takes over. You're not carrying a vase across a room. You've got to get in there, say what you want about the show, the character and the world. It's one of the few drama series without a written Bible, and every era contains a contradiction or left turn from what has come before. Any future showrunner will ignore it or run with it. So I think that's an interesting point. It shows how he felt he could play fast and loose with the Doctor Who canon in a sense. He didn't feel there was a show Bible in a sense. It seems to me that Russell T Davies has a higher regard for the canon of the show, but whether he will accept what Chibnall has done, or whether he'll kind of quietly ignore the Timeless Child stuff. I mean, in a way, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this, Paul, but in a way, I kind of want the show to leave Gallifrey for a while now. I'm not too interested in the origin story of the Doctor. I mean, it's called Doctor Who, for goodness sake. Like, the whole point is we don't really know who the Doctor is. So I feel just we've done it to death. Moffat did it to death, going back to Gallifrey in the 50th and then going again and again. Chibnall did it to death. I kind of think just leave the Doctor's origins. I'm much more interested in what the Doctor does now than where the Doctor came from. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, the idea the timeless child should be like, you know, just left to gather dust. It'll become a little curiosity on a corner, like Eccleston says about the TARDIS. You know, just, you know, over the years it'll disappear. People will forget about it. I think that's right. The Gallifrey thing is an interesting thing. I think I said this in a previous discussion that, I mean, it does frustrate me that things have not been resolved though, because. Right. The Day of the Doctor bringing back Gallifrey felt like a good sort of conclusion to the Time War thing, and it undid sort of the effects of the Time War without undoing the previous series, because the Doctor, you know, wouldn't remember the things that had gone on. I thought it was good to re-establish Gallifrey. Generally, then, you know, I think good to. You don't want to spend lots of time on Gallifrey, because that's one of the criticisms of the old series. I mean, not that it was always there, but it demystifies the Time Lords a bit if you have them hanging about all the time. Yeah. But I think it at least opened doors to do other things, to, maybe like a Susan or something, you know, or all kinds of characters that you could have brought back. And we saw in the Day of the Doctor sort of Gallifrey with families and children and stuff. And then it felt like Chibnall just threw it out he just threw it out, but like for no real good reason. Just so he can have a couple of episodes of Jodie Whittaker looking a bit mournful. And it never leads anywhere. There's no conclusion to the real story of the Timeless Child. It's just dropped into the middle of the TARDIS and left. So for me, that's the unforgivable thing.
And Paul Hunter said, without a written Bible, I beg to differ. There was a lot of talk about there being a Bible post-McGann movie. Yeah,
I mean, what he says about like I don't agree with personally. I don't agree with Chibnall's thing about everything is there's always a contradiction. Of course, there's contradictions, but I don't think you should go out of your way, therefore, to kind of trash 50 years of sort of what you have established of continuity. And I think I've said in a previous video again, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, and this is getting all worked up now. Doctor Who has always been developing continuity and contradicting itself, but I feel that like over time, certain things become established that you can't get rid of, and it just felt like actually Chibnall. Like, and one of the things is the Doctor is a Time Lord from Gallifrey, or he's Gallifreyan. If you want to nitpick about, you know, not all Gallifreyans are Time Lords, that though it felt like Chibnall just threw that out, and it just felt like you said, unearned, and it had nowhere to go. Yeah. You know, by all means, if you're going to throw it out, have a story that you've got to run with that you can finish. But he clearly didn't, because he's not finished it. It's gone now. I think that's what I find more frustrating. And I think there is established Doctor Who continuity you need to run with now. But will the Timeless Child 4-watch ever be found? Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what Russell T Davies does. If he refers to it at all, whether he tries to undo it. I mean, I think personally, as we've been saying, I'd be comfortable with him just you know, not going there for a while. But as you say, it's a shame what could have been done with Gallifrey after it was brought back. That's been tainted and tarnished now that we had. Well, it's hard to see now how. What you can do with it. I mean, I guess you could have said after the Time War. I mean, there's always a way you can write it back in, I suppose. But it just felt that like so much of this, you know, the new series coming back was really about the Doctor as the survivor of the Time War, living with the guilt of the Time War and what he'd done, and the trauma of losing his entire race, and that played out in the character of the Doctor through those first sort of, you know, 7 series with Matt Smith, and even into the Capaldi era when Gallifrey was back, you know, and he's got that great speech in the Zygon inversion or invasion. about war. You see how war has affected him, and so I think that was that's been a good thing for the show. Personally, I've quite liked that. The fact that had been such a big part of the show, and then they bring Gallifrey back, and then it's like, oh, I'll just chuck it out again. But it's just, yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't got the words for it.
I suppose we can let Zygons be Zygons, can't we? Yeah. So just quickly, before we move on to more about the era that's coming along, final thoughts for Power of the Doctor.
I just need to reply. I think Paul Hunter said about the Time Lords only appearing 4 times. I don't think that's true. I think they're in the Troughton era, and I think I think there are Time Lords in the Pertwee era as well. And there's definitely some in the Colin Baker era as well. Just throwing that out there.
Is the Time Meddler a Time Lord as well?
Well, exactly, yes. I mean, maybe you think about specifically Gallifrey.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
But Gallifrey does feature in some other stories as well, other than those 4. So, yeah. I do want to push back a little bit there, Paul. No.
Sure. But on the Power of the Doctor, I mean, so we felt it kind of honoured the show's history, which was very surprising. I think we've got to let that sink in. We've got, to their credit, they did honour the show's history. It was kind of a love letter to Doctor Who. The question is, was it a good story? Were we just kind of caught up? Now we've had time to digest it, and we've got over the kind of novelty of seeing all the legacy characters and stuff. Was it actually a good story, do you think?
I think when you look at it as a story, I think it's quite confused and it's muddled, and there's a lot thrown in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote down some things that I kind of came away thinking after watching it again. One of my big thoughts was, did the episode basically just throw a lot of nostalgia at you and quotes that made you really like it, but there wasn't really a lot in there on the whole, and it kind of got. I think maybe it did, but it kind of got away with it because of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, as someone said, good story, no. Good viewing experience, yes, as the evil Dalek has said there. So yeah, I mean, I had some questions, and I'd be interested to know what people think about these. Because, what do you think, Thomas? I was a bit confused about the Master. So at the beginning, when we first see the Master, he's Rasputin in 1916. And then they have the bit where they see his the paintings in the unit or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get a kind of Master in 2022 who's short-haired, clean-shaven. And he gets arrested by UNIT and ends up in a cage underneath UNIT in a prison.
Yeah.
He's let out by Ashad, at which point he presses a button and teleports away. And as far as I can tell in the episode, we never see him again. Because the next time we see the Master after that, it's the Rasputin Master back in 1916. And he stays that way, apart from when he regenerates into the Doctor. And I couldn't work out, was he supposed to be the same Master, or was he 2 Masters in different time zones? Is that Master are we supposed to assume that the Master has escaped then? I don't really know. I don't know what other people thought.
Good question.
Because we never see the clean-shaven, short-haired Master again, apart from when he's playing Jodie, but that's a different thing again.
Yeah.
Because I was racking my brains trying to think about. I actually had to go back in the episode on iPlayer and scroll through to find when he disappeared from the plot line, and be like, do I see him again? And I don't think he appears again. So I was like, is he just escaped? I don't know.
Is the implication that when he jumps, when he disappears with Ashad, is he then going back to be Rasputin?
Well, maybe, but so as Rasputin, is he wearing a wig and a beard? Does he go back and put it on? And if so, why does he keep it on, later?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that might be the answer. Chemdot, I think the Master, when he escaped from UNIT, he then became Rasputin. So then he set up the paintings to create his own history.
So, yeah. certainly is that's the way it came across to me, but I do see your point. Because there were a lot of things that he'd kind of prepared to get in place, like sending the miniaturized Ashad to Tegan, and he'd orchestrated it all. Yeah, it was a little bit jumbled, wasn't it? And also, you probably recorded this as well, but that creature, like the life force of the universe that was being harnessed to power the Cybermen planet.
The Quarunks.
The Quarunks. Why does all it takes to set it free is the Doctor saying, channel all your energy down into the planet, blow it up, and then you'll be free. It's like, why didn't you set it at the time? Why didn't it do it before?
Yeah, that was I was trying to really think. I suppose the Quarunks does feature is the energy from that is used to force the regeneration. But I don't know. It just did feel like a bit of a convenient plot point, to have at the beginning and then do that at the end as well. It did play a part because it brought the energy for the regeneration, but it just felt a little bit contrived. But
her death was it kind of took you off guard, didn't it? It was like, oh, she's just been shot by this kind of swinging laser underneath the Quarunks.
I couldn't quite work out whether, because the Master fired the tissue compression eliminator. I noticed when I watched it back, like you do see the kind of shot come out of it, but then she kind of simultaneously gets knocked off her feet by this laser. So I was still a bit unclear quite why she was regenerating.
How did she die?
Was it which one it was? If it was a combination of two, I don't know.
She has no visible wounds as well, which I guess it's kind of implied that just the blast of the energy just kind of flings her aside, and it's quite a minor gripe, isn't it? But it felt a bit weird.
Yeah, but I mean, we're Doctor Who fans. We're here to gripe over minor things. That's what we do, isn't it?
Maybe Chibnall just likes bony. What did people make of that bit, by the way? Right in the comments.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know what people thought of that. Because so also what I noticed about the story, and again, it felt like a lot of it was a rehash. Well, I say a rehash, or maybe it's supposed to be an homage to previous finales. So you've got the bit where you've got all the companions around the console doing something, a bit like at the end of Journey's Ends. Rasputin dancing to Rasputin is very much like the Master in The Sound of Drums. Daleks and Cybermen is very much Doomsday. The room that they were in, where the regeneration was forced, this kind of circular chamber, marble floored, is very reminiscent of the End of Time, where the Time Lords and the 10th Doctor are with the Master and things.
There were ceiling.
Yeah, there were other things in there as well, which I kind of felt, you're supposed to notice. I think you're supposed to notice that. I think some people would have, if you were being generous to it, you'd say, oh, he's just rehashed it. I think you were supposed to deliberately see that he was using those things. Personally, though, I was never really a big fan of the kind of tainted love kind of putting in that kind of stuff into Doctor Who. It just feels a bit grating. I think, like when we watched The Chase and people said the Doctor being in the Space Museum, the Doctor being in the Dalek cheapens the Daleks. I feel that those bits with the Master dancing to, Here Come the Drums or Rasputin cheapens the Master a bit for me.
Right.
Whilst I can let it go. It's not a big thing, but I kind of go, oh, not again.
It's kind of the hard line to walk with the Master, isn't it? How do you make him as this kind of mischievous, playful figure, but also make him menacing? And
one thing that's sad.
How strong is he has been? Well, adrenaline can do extraordinary things. Like you do hear of people who, in traumatic situations, can lift like cars. Yeah, exactly. So I'm okay with that, I think.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So my other thing, and another thing, Graham just randomly in a volcano.
I was just happy to see him.
I mean, I get that. And again, it's one of those things, because it's enjoyable, I can kind of just go, okay. Yeah, but when you stop and think about it, you go... And he says to Ace something like, oh, the Daleks are... they're doing something with it. He says something much more specific about tectonic plates. And I'm like, Graham drives a bus.
Yeah.
Like...
Which country are they in as well?
Was it Bolivia? I think at that point, yeah. I don't know. It was. So when you stop and think about it, you go, it's just a bit silly, isn't it? I can kind of let it go though because it's fun and enjoyable. Now, I think I said in the episode as well, I do think the Cybermen look great. I mean, I would like to see them look more like that in future, darker grey, without, obviously the Time Lord script kind of on them. But I like the way they looked, and they move. Apart from I'm not a big fan of the spikes on them. I think get rid of that.
Right.
But I like the general look of them, and I like the fact that they seem less robotic than the ones in the Tennant era, and how they stayed for a while after that as well. I think Ashad plays into that, doesn't it? It's more of a body horror thing, and I really like that. You should have a sense that there's a person underneath, rather than just they stuck a brain in a metal body.
They're the closest thing to sort of a Frankenstein monster-esque thing in Doctor Who, aren't they? And that was why one of the best Chibnall episodes was the haunting of Villa Diodati, because he kind of picked up on that Mary Shelley writing, and that was when Ashad was introduced, wasn't it?
So I think you have to. I would say about the Chibnall era, actually, like when he's brought the Cybermen in, when he's brought the Sontarans in, and he's brought the Sea Devils in, even if you haven't liked exactly what he's done with them, I think they've always looked really good.
Yeah, and the conversion process for the Cybermen in Power of the Doctor was really cool, wasn't it? Yeah.
In the process. So now, so my other big thing was some people were upset that the Yaz and Doctor thing, Thasmin,
right,
didn't really happen. I have to say, I think I was pleased it didn't happen, because it felt to me like, I don't think it was established in earlier stories. It felt like a bit like a cheap fan fiction that people online had started to kind of ship. That's what the kids are saying these days. They started to ship Yaz and the Doctor, and it felt a bit like Chris Chibnall went, "Oh, we could do that." And I'm glad he didn't bring it through.
You're the best person I've ever met.
And I actually think I would like to see the show steer away from having the Doctor as a romantic figure generally. When I look back on the Tennant Rose thing, much as I enjoyed it at the time, I think it's a misstep for the show. And I think, fortunately, you can attribute it within the universe of the show because let's think about it. The Doctor is in the time of David Tennant, 900 years old. Now he or she is sort of thousands of years old. Yeah. Why on earth would a Time Lord, someone like that, want to have a romantic link to a 19-year-old girl? Or however old Rose is supposed to be, very young, or anyone who is going to age and die very quickly and relative to their life. So it seems like it just wouldn't happen, and it also seems a little bit creepy, maybe.
It's not the 7 rule, is it?
It's definitely not. But I think in the universe, you can put it down to. I think what in my head I'm doing now is I'm saying the Eccleston Tennant thing with Rose is a kind of midlife crisis, post-traumatic stress from the trauma of the war, where he's trying to find solace in the arms of someone, and I can write that out there for in my head. I can go, right, that's it. But I don't want it to be a thing, because like I've said, why would the Doctor, as the character they are, being the age they are, and all the things that have gone on them, why would they ever kind of settle down with someone else? Like a person so young and who's going to die very quickly, and particularly with someone like Yaz, who's basically the human equivalent of a soggy biscuit. Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous, useless character. Like, you're the best person I've ever met. In what sense? Like, just appalling. So,
oh man.
So I think you can get away with the River Song thing works better because she had a longer lifespan.
Yeah.
And there was some similarity with this Time Lord DNA and stuff. You can work that regardless of whether you liked it or not. You can say you can see how they can have a relationship over time.
Yeah.
But as Chemdog has put the comment there with Rose, you can spend the rest of your time with me, but I can't spend the rest of mine with you. As the Doctor, I think David Tennant said to Rose in Doomsday. But he also says about Sarah Jane, doesn't he, in the School of Union episode? You wither and you age and you die. The Time Lords, kind of we live on and so on. I think that's the right attitude to take. That they should have the Doctor as this figure, and whilst companions would naturally be attracted to the Doctor, you can understand why that might be the case.
Yeah, I think that's
Don't have the Doctor being attracted to them because it just feels weird now.
It's irresponsible of the Doctor, isn't it? And because I think it was well done throughout the Tennant era, the fact that you ended with Donna, and there very much wasn't a romantic thing going on there between the Doctor and Donna. There was a slight sense that Tennant's Doctor kind of matured a bit and realised, actually, all these people who travel with me, they die, and I've lost all of them. And so it was nice that he went at his final companion. There wasn't a romantic element there. And then, did Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi... Matt Smith was quite a flirtatious Doctor, wasn't he? But you didn't get the sense that he would have settled down with someone. Peter Capaldi had the thing with River Song, but not really. So then it would have been weird if... Now, the Doctor's learned all that, and then Jodie Whittaker's just like, you're the best person I've ever met. So I'm glad, as you say, I'm glad they didn't. And also, it would have made it hard if Yaz was leaving the show. Like, what do you do then if Yaz and the Doctor are in love? Unless Yaz dies or something, how are you going to get Yaz to leave the show?
Yeah,
I think that's why he got rid of it.
And that's what we said. Yeah, and that's what we said in our prediction actually, because I said I think Yaz might die because I can't see why she would leave otherwise. And a few people did say, kind of in response to the episode, kind of they felt Yaz went a bit too easily. Like if Yaz really loved the Doctor, but then the difficulty, of course, is that she loves the Doctor, but she loves 13.
Yeah.
And she might not love David Tennant. So.
Yeah.
So I think what generally has worked better. So for me, actually, in the modern era of Who, I think, although I don't think at the time I enjoyed it as much, in retrospect, one of my favourite kind of companion relationships has been Capaldi with Clara. Because there was a deep friendship there. Then there was obviously nothing remotely romantic there. Despite kind of how it had been with Matt Smith, and he makes a point of saying, "I'm not your boyfriend." I think that worked really well, and I like that. And I mean, you get it a bit in what we've seen so far of the classic series with sort of Vicky and William Hartnell, Vicky and the Doctor. That kind of more grandfather relationship. I think it's hard to really. You can't just keep having romantic storylines every time there's a new Doctor because it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Chemdog has said, I really like Bill too. I think that's such a strong series. I'm really looking forward to getting back to that, actually. I thought they absolutely nailed that series. And her relationship again with the Doctor, because he's a lot older, there's not that romantic thing going on. Wow, Paul, we've been going for an hour and 4 minutes.
We'll just do a quick debrief on the power of the Doctor. I mean, never underestimate how long Doctor Who fans can talk about Doctor Who. Like, that's the...
Yeah. Well, welcome if you've just joined us. You've been very patient, and thanks for sharing all your thoughts. So, Gary, or Jerry? Is that Jerry?
Jerry.
The Martha storyline was just so mean-spirited. Yeah, interesting. I'd be interested to watch that series again. I hadn't clocked that, but I think she's in love with the Doctor, isn't she?
I think what people take sort of umbrage to is that, in a sense, the spectre of Rose was hanging over Series 3.
Right.
And that Martha clearly had a thing for the Doctor, but
she's not Rose.
Yeah, she wasn't Rose, and he was still hung up on Rose, and he often didn't notice when he said things that were quite insensitive without necessarily realising.
Right.
I think that was probably the thing. But I think, despite all that, Martha is a great companion. I think she suffered a little bit, like, from those storylines and from coming after what had been a very for a lot of people, a very popular storyline. But she's a great companion in her own right, I think, Martha.
Yeah, and she really comes into her own in the Master episodes when she like goes around rallying people. It's incredible. So I'll just see if I have any more slides. I don't think I have too many more. No, that was the last one. So I thought, Paul, there's probably a lot more to say on the Power of the Doctor, and people can keep commenting. But now we're looking ahead, and we talked about Disney Plus and new logo and stuff. What might be good now is just to rewatch that Next Time clip. It's about 30 seconds long of the new David Tennant stuff. Because we did react to it when it came at the end of the Power of the Doctor, but we were so overwhelmed at that point, and we were beside ourselves that it didn't really go in for me. So I thought maybe we could just watch it a bit more closely, pause it a bit, interact with people in the comments, and just look ahead to this exciting new chapter in Doctor Who. So let me see if...
it's already racing away.
Yeah, here we go. So first of all, looks like we're in an alleyway of some description.
This is an in-depth dive right there.
Cool.
Those are
we're
lights.
still in an alleyway. Next
frame.
But that's a beautiful shot, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you want this, right? Good
now,
Lieutenant.
Do you reckon he's coming straight from Durdle Door?
I would imagine that it picks up straight away. It's still it's Whittaker's TARDIS, isn't it, there? Because you've got the black background on the police telephone box bit. Whereas during the earlier eras of it was the white one. Man, I'm sad. Like, I think we'll find that's the TARDIS from...
Yeah, I mean, Paul, that was brilliant. That was a real geek out moment there.
You wouldn't think I'm married. Like...
Wait, are you? No, here we go.
To the Doctor.
So he looks great. That's what he was wearing as well, isn't it? From the end of Power of the Doctor.
Yeah, so...
Now, what do we have here?
No, I'm trying to recognise where this is filmed, because I don't know whether it's back filming in Cardiff. I don't know, but it doesn't. I don't recognise it if it is, because I grew up in Cardiff. I often recognise lots of places in.
Right, yeah, it'd be nice if we returned to Cardiff, because the Chibnall era had a weird obsession with Sheffield, didn't it? Which was like, fair enough, I like Sheffield. But
I went there with Yaz, didn't they? And Ryan, that was his name. Patagonian Ryan.
Make my sonic screwdriver out of Sheffield spoons. Yeah, it looks like we've got Indian street food shop on the corner there. Sorry, this is the saddest thing we've done, isn't it?
Dude,
I'm just so excited. Look at it's David Tennant in Doctor Who again.
Don't worry, yeah.
It's Matt Smith.
Sorry. Someone's just said they think that's Bristol, and actually I think that's right. I have heard it might be filming in Bristol.
Nice. I mean, yes. I live in my parents live in Bristol, so I should have clocked that. But
so this is yes, and there were shots. Yes, that's right. The alleyway I think is Camden, because I saw some photos on Twitter. People were filming there. Where
Peter
it's supposed
Dundas,
to be,
friend of the show, welcome.
Peter, good old Pete. Yes, I did. I don't know where it's going to be set though, because obviously they film in lots of different places, but whether it's supposed to be London, someone said I'm sure they'll play it off as London. Well, Pete said they'll play it off as London. Neil Patrick Harris, then big name for Doctor Who.
Yes. So remind me what he'd done before.
So he'd been in How I Met Your Mother. He was Doogie Howser, I think. He was in Lemony Snicket, the series, playing Count Olaf. He's been in lots of... He's quite a big American name.
And he looks quite creepy there, doesn't he? With the lopsided top hat and the wave and... Yeah.
And people have already kind of suggested who this character is, but we might not be able to talk about that till after Series 3, Thomas. So,
oh, really?
So there are some suggestions of the character he's playing, but...
Interesting.
I can neither... I really can't confirm or deny it, because I don't know, but probably can't delve too much into it now.
Okay. Oh, I just want to. I know this is sad, but I just want to see this. Look at that! Look at that set.
So that door is coming down, isn't it? So it's Tennant sliding in the door, and is that Donna in the just to the right?
It could be, couldn't it? Remember what she's wearing there.
Yeah.
It's like he's running away under the door, but he's leaving her.
Leave her there, you know.
It reminds me of the bit in Chicken Run when they're getting out of the oven and they go under the falling door. It's kind of a classic Indiana Jones thing, isn't it? But that looks like a great set. And David Tennant did a lot of the kind of running around stuff in his era, didn't he?
I mean, it's Tennant doing what we love Tennant doing, you know.
Yeah.
Now, that's going to be interesting, isn't it? Donna is back. And that would be interesting to see how does Donna play into this. So how can she come back? Because we know last time we saw her, she'd had this block put on her memory, or had her memory kind of wiped, and if she ever remembered the Doctor, she'd burn.
Yeah, and it did start to come back to her, didn't it? And it like took out all the masters surrounding her, but it didn't fully come back, did it? She kind of recovered from that, and then it left with her getting married, which was a nice callback to the Runaway Bride, and he gave them the lottery ticket, didn't he?
And when was that? Was that 13 years ago, mate?
Oh my!
Was that 2009 that Tennant left?
Yeah, I
mean,
so.
it doesn't feel like that long ago, but it's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, 2009. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that. And Bernard Cribbins was in the shoot, wasn't he? So the late Bernard Cribbins. So that's going to be very poignant, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Very sad because he was definitely one of the real highlights of Series 4.
Yeah.
Bernard Cribbins.
Wilf's last Doctor Who. Wow. Yeah. I mean, we weren't expecting him to be in Doctor Who again.
No, and
a couple of years ago. But...
You know, and obviously he only passed away sort of weeks really after the scenes we'd seen him shooting. So very sad.
Incredible. Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
You know, great that we were able to get him and see him again. So.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That was it. So running down a corridor. Oh, well, look at that kind of.
Someone tell me what the hell is going on here?
Oh yes.
So do you think those, because we've got Gatwa there? Do you think all those scenes are actually from, because apparently there's going to be 3 episodes with David Tennant in, and they're all going to be in November next year. We'd initially, I think in conversation, I'd said to you that, oh, maybe we'll get one New Year's Day, Easter, and November. But actually, I think they are all November time. So do you think that these scenes are from 3 different episodes? Because presumably Gatwa's Doctor doesn't appear until the end of that. I don't know.
That would sound legit.
But then, wouldn't it be strange though if he only appears at the end of the story, having regenerated from Tennant? It would be strange to include a scene of him there because they don't often have much to say post regeneration, and that would be a bit of a spoiler, wouldn't it, to put him in there?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. You know how, like, when Jenna Coleman was announced as an ex-companion and she appeared in that Dalek episode, and it was obviously because she was like the Impossible Girl and stuff. So she wasn't appearing as Clara at that point, but they kind of teased it. I wonder if maybe Ncuti Gatwa will appear as another character or something in some way before David Tennant regenerates into him. I think that like a vision or something like that.
I don't think it's going to be as simple as we'll just have David Tennant for 3 episodes and then regenerate straight into Ncuti Gatwa. I think there will be a bit more to it than that, but
because there is weird stuff going on here. First of all, they're going to probably explain why she's regenerated into David Tennant, because he's like, what? And why the clothes regenerate as well. So clear, and the fact that, you know, the master did the forced regeneration. Clearly, something's a bit kind of amiss. So who knows how they do it.
Even after Whittaker regenerated into Tennant, there is a bit of a moment there where he looks down at the clothes, and I think it's not just kind of I'm the 10th Doctor again. I got a sense of kind of the Doctor going, well, why have my clothes changed? Kind of there will be a bit more to it than, you know, we just wanted to have an iconic David Tennant look. There must be a bit of an explanation, I think, that will come. So
and the fact that in this he says, I don't know who I am. Oh, it's going to be so interesting. I'm so excited for this. Gatwa is wearing Tennant's Tynes shirt. Oh, I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I had seen that.
Should we watch? So this is the only clip we have so far of Gatwa let's assume as the Doctor, this is what we
What the
have.
hell is going on here?
There we go.
He's great,
I mean-
isn't he?
So, yeah, I mean, well, it's got us all talking, hasn't it, and got us interested.
Yeah, and like the moustache as well. I feel quite.
You're like, I was doing the moustache thing before it was cool. So that's all those people who said to you, shave it off, you said, they're not laughing now, are they? Like,
Yeah, all the people who said I was creepy.
I mean that's still fair, right? Like,
Whoa, Paul, mate.
mate,
Going on here?
This is good music as well.
2023, there we go. Oh, I will say, just talking about music, I've not really thought the music in the Chibnall era has been particularly wonderful under Akinola.
Have you not?
No.
It's
but
different, isn't it?
I think it's been mostly indistinct, would be my opinion of
Right.
it.
Yeah. Sing me some music from the Chibnall era.
Yes, exactly. I will say though, on the rewatch, I noticed it. I went, oh, the music for the Cybermen that he has is great, and it was in the previous kind of series, like series 12 with Ashad. Then the music he created for the Cybermen, I think, is really, really good. It's much better than the Murray Gold's one, which was very distinctive, but with the horns,
Yeah. The music during, I presume it was him who did the music during Jodie Whittaker's regeneration. That was good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It was just like that. I was going to say, Thomas, because we should wrap up. Go on.
Oh, we should. Yeah, so Ncuti has the energy needed to soon know how they might turn out. But I'm completely looking forward to what they'll do with the character. Yeah, that's a good point. People saying I like the moustache, so yeah, looking forward to Ncuti.
I was going to say, Thomas, maybe a good point to wrap up with, because we forgot to talk about it when we looked at the Power of the Doctor, is we've just got to say Ian Russell will now hold the world record for playing the same character, like the longest gap on screen, because I think it's like 57 years since he played Ian. And there was someone else held the role, record before, like for the longest gap, and it was like 50 years between their roles playing the same character. But I think this breaks it. So he may have become a world record holder in being Ian on screen again. But how amazing was it to see Ian? Particularly poignant for us having just watched the first two series. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a curveball, wasn't it? And that was really nicely done, the companions meeting up.
Companions are great to see, even though, I know some of those companions you haven't seen yet. But what I didn't notice, and I mean, I guess maybe you wouldn't know unless it was pointed out to you, that in that companion circle, there was an empty chair. And people had said it was supposed to represent Sarah Jane. Because obviously Elizabeth Sladen passed away. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I read. So...
Is it not Ryan because he was in Patagonia? That was my favourite line in it when the Doctor says to Graham, "Where's Ryan?" And he's like, "Patagonia." And it was the most... Hey, I'm just going to as efficiently deal with why this character isn't here as possible. Monosyllabic. Well, not quite monosyllabic, but... thanks, guys. Yeah, Stuart Hugh.
Who was there a laptop? I don't know. Did they have a laptop with someone on? I didn't see that. Maybe, but
I didn't notice.
I don't know. It will be that guy from the 11th Hour. Delete your internet history, Jeff, whatever his name was. Like, I can't remember what he's called.
And just people saying about the music. Yeah, is Murray Gold coming back? It's a possibility. He has worked with Russell T Davies a lot. I think he did the score for Years and Years, which was the sort of dystopian show that RTD wrote. So who knows? I mean, in a way, I'd love Murray Gold to come back. I love his music, but it might be nice to just bring more new voices. Because I get your point about Akinola's music was quite indistinct. It was going for quite a different vibe, wasn't it? I kind of like that he didn't try and emulate Murray Gold, he didn't try and just do that again. He did do something new. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Doctor Who music, it's nice when it does have some really distinct themes that you remember in there. Because I think I could probably sing you the theme for Martha and Donna and Rose and stuff. Like, they were so distinct, weren't they? And they were such an emotional part of the show. But who knows? Maybe Murray Gold will come back.
Yeah, I mean, if he does, I think. I mean, I wouldn't be averse to him coming back. I enjoyed most of his work, not all of it, but
sure.
But I do think actually as well, it would be with Russell T Davies coming back, and a lot of that kind of same production crew. It might be nice to have something different as well, just to make it more distinct.
Yeah.
I don't think Russell T Davies is going to be I don't think it's going to be a rerun of the original RTD era at all anyway. But having maybe a different composer might make it even more distinct. So who knows? Yeah,
people have said maybe if he came back for just the 60th or something like that might be cool. So the dream team for an episode. But yeah, well, thanks so much, guys. We've been going an hour and 20 minutes, but hopefully I think we've covered quite a lot of areas there. So
you could almost have watched The Power of the Doctor in the time we've done this.
Yeah, well, we're very grateful you've chosen to join us. So do write any comments if you'd like to follow up on any things, and I'm sure there'll be lots of conversation. And we'll probably react to the new stuff as it comes out in 2023, because everyone's going to be talking about it, aren't they? So yeah, we'll do that alongside getting into season 3 of the classic era soon. And I believe the Doctor Who Dalek movies we've got to do soon.
The Peter Cushing movie will be the next. Should I think be the next thing? Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Paul, and thanks everyone. And see you
thanks,
soon.
Thomas. Thanks for joining us, guys. It's been great. Take care. We'll see you again soon. Bye bye.
Alonso.